What are some of the crime rings who aren't very good at crime? Let's get right into it. Number 6, Rugby Big Brains. Big Boss Jonathan Boorman and ex-rugby player Alexander Karonias targeted hundreds of British college students in a mobile phone scheme worth £2 million. Karonias was a former rugby player for London Scottish who had to retire after sustaining a back injury. Boorman, also known as the Big Boss, was the operations leader. The pair didn't act alone and had several accomplices, including Boorman's father, Michael Boorman. The group conned students into handing over their personal information that was used for mobile phone contracts or unclaimed upgrades. Boorman and Karonias worked under the guise of JBI Systems Limited, JBI Capital Limited, and Netlink Services UK Limited. After obtaining the students' information, they'd give the SIM cards to spam marketers who sent them thousands of texts. The conspirators used the students' information to sell phone contracts which they'd use to get more phones on a single contract. They would then send off new phones, but afterward claim they wanted them with a different storage size or in another color. Instead of sending back the latest iPhone or smartphone, they'd send back a cheap old one. The cell phone company then sent them new phones, enabling the conspirators to take advantage of the system. The group was caught by authorities when they found a document titled JBI Directory at the company's offices in a 2014 raid. A judge sentenced Boorman to 6 years and 4 months in prison and Karonias to 5 years. The rest of the group received prison sentences of around 2 years each. Sounds like these phonies were forwarded to jail. Number 5. Definitely not car insurance. A crime ring in Manchester, England used fake bank cards to claim £95,000 worth of car insurance rewards. The key figures in the scam were 3 gang members, including Mohammed Shoaib, the brains behind the operation. The group used fake bank cards to purchase insurance and would request refunds shortly afterward. The money from those refunds would go into legitimate bank accounts of members of the operation. Their scheme made just under £100,000 until it caught the attention of the insurance company First Central. Employees at the company saw huge refunds for 2 motor insurance policies that the company paid into the bank account of Amjad Mughal, one of the scammers. First Central conducted an internal inquiry that uncovered 32 motor insurance policies purchased with fraudulent bank cards. After the policies were purchased, the buyer would add additional coverage for the policy but use a different card from the one they used for the first purchase. The second card belonged to a member of the operation. A few days later, the person claiming to be the policyholder would cancel the policy for a full refund sent to their legitimate bank card. Greater Manchester Police worked with the City of London's fraud department to catch the fraudsters. They quickly arrested 4 gang members, or roughly 5 eyebrows, and after conducting further search warrants, 9 more members handed themselves into police custody. Police have arrested 13 people in connection to the operation for conspiracy to commit fraud, with the highest sentence going to Mohammed Shoaib, who was sentenced to 21 months in prison. The rest of the group's prison sentences ranged from 16 to 2 months. Number 4. Ghana Steel. Fred Asante, a Ghanaian citizen based in the United States, played a crucial role in the enterprise, a criminal operation that conducted several fraudulent operations. The enterprise had several ways of getting money from its victims. With the help of Asante, they ran a business scam where he set up legitimate-seeming companies. Those companies were just a front to defraud American individuals and businesses to receive and later launder millions of dollars. The enterprise applied for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program that the United States Small Business Administration implemented to relieve businesses struggling during the COVID-19 pandemic. They put legitimate company names on the forms, but their paperwork was fraudulent. Funds were deposited into bank accounts that the enterprise controlled. Perhaps the enterprise's cruelest scheme was a romantic scam they created to prey upon vulnerable, lonely people. They sent emails, texts, and direct messages on dating websites pretending to be people looking for love on the internet. Victims believed they were talking to potential partners. Some even found themselves in relationships. The victims were often older men or women speaking to enterprise members. After establishing the relationship, the victims' alleged new partners convinced them to wire their money to their love interests, which then went directly into the bank accounts of members of the enterprise. Asante used 19 business accounts across at least 10 different banks to launder the victims' money. They used different company names, depending on which scam victims were paying into, and once he received the money, he would launder the money to members of the enterprise abroad. Asante used the enterprise's proceeds to buy cars, food, and other goods from US-based suppliers. Then he shipped the products to Ghana. Like Robin Hood, if Robin Hood was from Ghana, stole from innocent people, and his merry men were a band of scamming cybercriminals. This process made it difficult to locate the origin of the proceeds and conceal the identity of the beneficiaries of the scams. Between 2016 and 2020, Asante handled $35 million, broken out across multiple business accounts. Overall, the three scams laundered at least $50 million. Asante was arrested in Virginia in February 2021 and pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit money laundering. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York sentenced him to 9 years in prison for money laundering, 3 years of supervised release, and ordered him to pay a forfeiture of roughly $650,000 and restitution of $2,300,000. Number 3. Facebook friendly. A fraudster based in Atlanta was identified through a Facebook selfie after she stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from multiple banks. Tanya Monique Peel visited bank after bank where she withdrew thousands of dollars at a time. Police believe that she was a part of a sophisticated group of scammers, and she stole the identity of at least one person, a Charles Schwab client named Terrence Fowler. Peel had Fowler's information, including a cell phone number, so she could verify the transfer after Charles Schwab called Fowler to confirm the purchases. She ensured that the victim's calls were forwarded to an untraceable cell phone so the fraudsters could quickly tell the Charles Schwab representatives that they authorized the transfer. Peel set up a phony business account in an Atlanta branch of JP Morgan Chase where she transferred $123,000 that she'd stolen through identity theft. She moved after another $52,000 to a Wells Fargo branch in California. Immediately after the transfers, she withdrew all the money from the account. However, Tanya wasn't as slick as she thought she was. She actually used her real name in the account, making it easy for police to find her on Facebook. Her selfies matched the images of the woman in the surveillance video. Tanya Peel turned herself into authorities after Atlanta police identified her. They charged her with felony theft by taking too many dumb selfies. Number 2. Tax return fraud. From 2015 to 2018, at least 9 cybercriminals banded together to conduct a sophisticated tax fraud scheme that cost companies millions of dollars. The group took to the dark web to buy computer server credentials for tax preparation and certified public accounting firms. Once they had the server credentials, they could access the tax returns of thousands of clients from those CPA and tax firms. The tax returns gave them access to clients' personal information, such as their full names, social security numbers, dates of birth, and financial records. The group then created and operated multiple fraudulent tax preparation businesses in South Florida. The companies filed false tax returns that the group then put into bank accounts or onto debit cards that they controlled. They made sure they covered their tracks by opening bank accounts in the names of their fake businesses so that they would receive tax preparer fees, and even registered preparer tax identification numbers with the IRS. They ran at least 6 fake organizations. To avoid drawing too much attention to themselves, the group used pseudonyms and opened business entities and bank accounts in the conspirators' names. They also had multiple different email addresses. Once they had their victims' information, they used it to make it seem like the victims were the ones filing the bulk false returns. One of the conspirators was Monica Jenkins, whose mother, Brenda Foreman, was Broward County's clerk of the court. Alongside 3 other co-defendants, authorities arrested Jenkins and took her to Broward County Jail. Foreman helped get her daughter out on bond and co-signed the personal surety bond for her release. 3 out of Jenkins's 8 co-defendants received bonds as well. The conditions of Jenkins' release were that she had to wear a GPS monitor, couldn't work or contact anyone else involved in the criminal operation, and had to live at her mother's home. So she was basically grounded and was no longer able to hang out with her bad influence friends. Monica also had to surrender her passport, submit a DNA sample, and participate in random drug testing. 3 of her co-defendants received the same conditions. The group's charges fell under RICO, an acronym for Racketeer, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations, because they stole IRS-issued identification numbers of tax preparation and CPA firms that they used to file false tax returns. Richard Nixon signed RICO into law in 1970 and intended to use it when prosecuting the mafia and other organized crime groups. The FBI and the IRS investigated the case and uncovered the details of the operation. All the co-conspirators face RICO charges, which carry a 20-year federal prison sentence. 4 of the conspirators also face charges of aggravated identity theft and wire fraud conspiracy. Wire fraud conspiracy has a maximum penalty of 20 years, and combined with the aggravated identity theft charges, the 4 face 2 more years of imprisonment added to their sentencing. In total, the conspirators stole the information of 9,000 victims. Over the 4 years, they claimed over $36 million in false tax refunds. Their case is ongoing as of late November 2022. Oh, and Monica's mom said she has to do extra chores around the house in the meantime. Number 1. Playing Monopoly. A cash printing operation based in Kent, England, conspired to supply over £12 million in counterfeit bills, making it one of Britain's most extensive fake cash printing operations ever. At least 4 people were actively involved in the operation when they caught the attention of authorities, and Andrew Ainsworth was the most prominent member in the group. Officers raided a warehouse where the group operated and found stacks of fake £20 notes worth £5.25 million. When police raided the industrial unit, they found Philip Brown standing in the middle of a pile of counterfeit cash with a look on his face typically reserved for when you're sure you were just going to fart, but then you realize there was a little something extra. The men used a printing press that would typically produce magazines or flyers, but it was a way to quickly print large amounts of the fake bills. After the initial bust, it seemed the crew were just trying to get rid of the rest of the bills any way they could. This led to a dog walker stumbling across £5 million broken into £20 notes tossed into some bushes, and another £200,000 discovered along a railway line. It was bad enough that they were counterfeiters, but litterbugs too? Nice example, guys. The Bank of England reported finding a new counterfeit £20 note in general circulation in January 2019, the same time the investigation began. £1.6 million worth of bills made it into circulation across the UK, making the total amount of bills printed over £12 million. John Evans, Philip Brown, and Nick Winter were arrested by Kent police and admitted to producing counterfeit currency at Woolwich Crown Court. Their sentences ranged from 10 to 6 years. Andrew Ainsworth avoided the initial arrests, but in April 2022, was sentenced to 5.5 years in prison. He did not pass go. He did not collect $200. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section which Twitter you think is better, before Elon Musk or after Elon Musk.